hot?
Scraping hot.
Right on. Hey everybody, Andrew from Burch here with Chef Strittmatter, Topher's like to call him. Today, Topher's going to show us how to do some backyard Japanese style cooking on the Burch Barrel. Speaking from my personal experience, this guy is an amazing chef. He works at Four Seasons in Jackson, and we're really stoked to have him around. So with any further ado, Topher, you want to take it away?
Absolutely. Thanks, Andrew. So again, my name's Topher. I'm a chef with one of the premier luxury hotel brands, and I've been working in the kitchens of those hotels and resorts for about the last decade. Burch Barrel's given me a cool opportunity to come out and prepare a little menu to show you guys some restaurant-style food that you can execute at home on your Burch Barrel. So if you want to follow along, we've got some recipes that are up on birchbarrel.com. And I'm going to run you guys, for those of you following along at home, I'll run through a couple features before we get started. But what we're going to do today is a backyard ricotta, so some Japanese-style fireside cooking. We're going to start out with a seared elk tataki that we're going to do up over some hickory coals that we've got, followed by some ricotta yaki skewers and shareables, and then we're going to do a large format steak that's going to be a grass-fed ribeye that we've got from Carter Country Meats. That's kind of our preferred ranch to get meat from. They're based out of here in Wyoming, up in Tensley. Awesome grass-fed gold product, double-aged beef. Doesn't get any better or any more local. Before we get going, I want to touch on a couple features, though, on this grill for those of you that are following with me. And these things, I think, will help you get a little more forgivability out of the grill if you get a little too hot of a fire going. And it'll also give you some just overall control of your heat. One of the cool things that I found in the couple weeks that I've been cooking on this grill is that you can raise and lower the coal pan. And by putting on this Stockman glove that we get from Burch Barrel, I can grab this handle without any worry about burning myself. And I can raise this up to the very top platform here, so I can have my coals right underneath what I'm trying to sear. So if I'm trying to get a really quick, hard sear, like I am for our ricotta yaki skewers, this gets the fire right up under the grill pan for me. So after that, now that I've got that up, I can simply use the pistol grip and raise this lid down, give it a twist, lift it up, and now we're ready to cook. The other one, get this glove off, is the lock collar itself. And that is where the lid attaches with these pegs. I can raise it up again using the pistol grip. That's what gives me direct access to the coal pan. So say I put my steak on here, and maybe my fire's a little too hot. Maybe I got a little crazy with my lump charcoal. I can put my steak on, start my sear, and I can raise and lower this above the coal pan to give me a little forgiveness so that I don't burn the steak if I start to get flare-ups from all the fat that's coming off while it sears. And I think that's a really cool feature to get that you don't really see with any other grill. So let's go ahead and get started. We'll start off with our elk tataki. I've got a piece of backstrap, courtesy of Wyoming Public Lands that Andrew hunted himself. So we'll start with that. We're going to keep this nice and simple. We're going to do salt, pepper, oil, and that's it. We don't really want to do anything to the meat initially, no marinades or anything, no sugars that'll burn on the grill. Little simple sear. This is going to get about 90 seconds per side, so it's going to be fast. The idea with this is that it ends up being very rare, almost raw in the middle, almost as if you were doing a black and blue steak. We'll put some oil on here. This will help us get a nice sear. We'll come over here to the Burch Barrel that's on my left. Press it down. So again, the idea with this is really fast. We don't want to cook it. We don't want this to get to mid-rare. And I'm going to let this go. And my friend Will's going to come over and give this a couple turns while we move on to the next couple of items so that we can keep this moving for you. So about 90 seconds. Give you the tongs. Thank you, sir. So while that cooks, and while Will handles the flips, I'm going to go ahead and start this ribeye. So again, guys, we got this from Carter Country Meats. You can hop on their website. I think we've got a link posted. You can, I know it's kind of tough. Not everybody wants to get to the grocery store right now, kind of with what's going on, which is great because you can order beef. They'll ship it right to your door. You can get smaller boxes if you've got a smaller family. And if you want to get a larger box, they'll even ship it right to you in a Yeti cooler that you can then ship back so that they can refill it with beef. And again, same thing with this ribeye. We're just going to do salt and pepper on this. I've gone ahead because I want this to kind of move fast for everybody who's watching today. I've sous vide this thing for about 3 hours to get it nice and tender. So we're going to do a reverse sear on here. If you have any questions on what that process looks like, since we don't have the time to touch on it, feel free to shoot us a message on that, and we can answer some questions after we finish up the live event today. So like I mentioned, we'll go ahead and unlock the lid from the rock collar, raise this up. I have my coals set where I want them, so we should get a nice sear and not see too much in the way of flare-ups. And we'll drop this steak. Press it into the grates. How's it, Tataki?
Looking great. Got another probably 70 seconds on this.
There you go. So again, guys, just to kind of show off what this meat looks like, really, really nice product. Bone in, we Frenched it down to showcase the bone. If you're going to do a cookout for your friends and family, what else do you want when you're cooking on barbecue like this but to show off a nice piece of meat? It's got a lot of cool, impressive value when you drop it on the table. Nice way to impress the wife and kids. So,
Hey, Topher, how do you manage the flare-ups with so much fat content?
So with this, if I want to manage the flare-ups, like I said, with that, using that locking collar, I can raise and lower this. And I'll show. Let me try to do it really quick for you guys here. I drop my lid, give it a little twist. Jack, can you see the other side of this one? Right here.
Got it.
Thank you, sir. And we can raise this up. So if I want to be able to walk away from this, and this is kind of the cool part, if I'm worried about flare-ups, burning this steak, these things are expensive. Nobody wants to ruin the meal right before they serve it. We can just simply raise this up and let it go. So that's pretty cool. And that's one of the things that I think is really unique about this grill. So let's jump in here and let's finish off these skewers. When it comes to Rabatayaki style cooking, guys, it's just Japanese for fireside. So this is going to be really fast. We're going to cook directly over the coals. This isn't the kind of thing where you get to go in the house, watching football, drink beer, anything like that. You're going to hang out right here over the grill. So we're going to get this going. I'm going to drizzle a little bit of oil over some of this stuff. A little salt and pepper. And this fish that we've got in this maple miso marinade is really delicate, even though we cut it kind of thicker. I'm still going to put a little pan spray on there just so that doesn't stick on the grill. Kind of makes it a little more forgiving for us. So if that's ready, we'll go ahead and pull that. Pop that in our Yeti cooler to start to chill. Again, this is all really fast stuff. We're not really going to walk away from it. Set this stuff down. Start our sear. Normally for Rabata style cooking, you're going to use a Vinaigrette charcoal. It's a special Japanese charcoal. Virtually smokeless, burns extremely hot, about 1,000 degrees. But with what we're going to do, we picked up some really great cowboy charcoal from Ace Hardware. Burns really hot, almost smokeless. It has a little bit. Really available product. For us here in Jackson, it's one of the best things that we could find. So that's why we wanted to showcase doing something like this without having to use any specialty ingredients that aren't quite necessary, so that you can see exactly how easy it is to do this at home. So my king crab, when you buy that at the store, it's already going to come cooked. We've opened that up on the shelf, and we're going to set that off to the side because the idea is not to cook it twice. It's just simply to heat it up a little bit, warm it gently. We'll brush a little bit of our finishing butter on there. As that warms, we'll give it a flip here shortly. Squeeze some lemon over the top too. Put sear on these meatballs. So I'm going to give our steak a check. Again, really easy to get the lid off of the lock collar. That's looking great.
Oh, beautiful.
So by raising that up, we kept any of that fat that drips down into the coals from flaring up. We'll go ahead and drop our lid to get a little more heat. That'll go for a couple more minutes, and then we can rest that.
Topher, if they missed the recipes, where can they find them?
Hop on birchbarrel.com. We've got all of our recipes posted. Everything's written out. The way I wrote the recipes was pretty small, so that you can one recipe will do about a batch. You're looking at quantities that'll feed about 3 to 4 people. Everything's really easy to read. It's all kind of in tablespoons, teaspoons, stuff like that. So it's, you know, unlike what we do in restaurants where it's gallons of this and gallons of that and pounds of this, it's really easy for you guys to translate into what you're doing in your home kitchen with what you have available. Right. Those are looking good. So these shishito peppers, I don't know if you can get in tight here. I can show you these. These go really fast. We're looking just to get some nice char on there. We've soaked our skewers for about 30, 40 minutes before we got started here so that they don't burn on the grill. We're just using some bamboo skewers. And while that goes, we'll brush a little more butter here on our meat crab. So since this stuff all cooks really quick, we're going to start to get ourselves ready to plate up, and I'm going to check this ribeye.
What do you do there?
So just a little quarter turn. We want to get some nice grill marks on here. Any area that didn't have good access to heat, we'll turn it so that it can start to pick up some nice char. And you can see, as I mentioned here with this cowboy lump charcoal, not a lot of smoke that comes off this. Just a little bit from the fat that drips down in. Drop our lid one more time, and when we come back to that, that'll be ready to jump in and pull off the grill and start to rest. We're going to do a couple things to finish our shishito peppers and our mushrooms. So our mushrooms we're going to drizzle with a little bit of a Yuzu truffle vinaigrette. The truffle will kind of help bring out the mushroom flavor. And some nice citrus in the Yuzu. The Yuzu I just picked up on Amazon. Had it in a couple days. It's a lot more delicate than you get from a lime or lemon, but if you do want to use a little fresh lemon and lime juice, feel free. So we'll drizzle some of that on here before we serve. And we'll do the same thing with the shishitos, but using some of our citrus ponzu sauce. Whoa, go crazy. I'll go ahead and get this steak off. Check that out. It's perfect. Set this off to the side and let it rest for a few minutes before we slice in. Every house is a little different, but when I grill at home, typically the kitchen or the grill ends up being the center of attention. So I always kind of like to put out a few appetizers and things for my friends and family to snack on. So let's get that set. these right off the grill, put them on here. Nice little shareable presentation. And we'll do the same thing with our king crab. A lot of flavor from that finishing butter that we put on the king crab.
Let's take a quick look at what you're doing, Topher.
Yeah, I'm going to come in and get a good shot. So I'm putting a little fresh chive here on the king crab, and I'll do a little scallion that I've sliced for the mushrooms. And some more of our sauce here on the side. So that's what we've got. Something nice for everybody to eat while we finish up the rest of the meal. Set this off to the side. And we'll jump in and finish up our tataki. So this is one of those things that you want to have. As you can see, that's the one we just did. Just to show the difference, this is one of those things that you need to plan ahead a little bit on. We did one up in advance. You can see the one right off the grill, a little harder to slice because it's still got a little squish to it, since it's so raw in the middle. This one we chilled down, it makes it a lot easier. The idea with this, very, very thin slices. And you can see the color on that meat. Nice and red in the middle. We don't want to go so paper thin that this stuff falls apart, but we also don't want it to get chewy by being too thick. This elk doesn't have a lot of connective tissue or fat to break down as it cooks. That's why we did that nice quick sear. Super, super tender. Great flavor on this. We tested one out yesterday. Couldn't be a better piece of meat. So if you've ever wanted to do something a little bit different with that game that's been in your freezer for a while, this is a really fun thing to jump in and do. So I'm going to get about 6 or 7 nice slices of this so we can share it. Now we'll plate this up. This is one of those things that's really simple. What did you think of this when you tried it the other day, Andrew?
I didn't know you could do that with elk.
So
Yeah, I didn't know that you could get that kind of flavor out from any of the meat preparation that you've done with this menu.
I'm going to fan that out a little bit. And you guys can present this however you'd like at home. It's a nice way to have a kind of stylish restaurant-esque appetizer right out of your home kitchen. I've got some stuff back here that we'll garnish it up with. I know it's a little hard to see. We're going to start out and we're going to drizzle some of our Wafu style dressing on here. Wafu dressing is just simply a Japanese style. Drizzle some around the meat, onto the plate. If you like spice, you could use some serranos or some jalapenos. I chose to use some Fresno. Nice sort of mild heat. Depending on how much heat you like. A little fresh scallion. Use some sesame seeds. I like to use this chili infused sesame oil. Kind of drizzle around. Clean up our plate. The Wafu dressing is great. A little bit of spice, some nice acidity from the vinegar that's in there. You can put that on a salad if you wanted to. And the heat's kind of killed our garnish here a little bit. You kind of get the idea. A little extra crunch from the sesame. So our steak's rested. Let's go ahead and jump into the fun. At the end of the day, this is what we're all going for, to barbecue anyway. So our steak's rested and ready to go. It won't take place because the natural juices and everything absorb back into the fibers of the meat. We'll clean off our board here. We're going to do a little family style presentation. So before I slice this up, I'm going to get a few things ready. I've got some Yuzu koshu that we're going to put on directly right here on the board. This is one of those things, like when you're eating a yakimono style steak like this, especially one with your friends and family that's kind of large format, it's shareable. You know, a lot of condiments makes it nice and interactive, makes it kind of fun. So I'm going to start out and just cut this off the bone. Put a little slice on here before we fan it out.
And guys, if you have questions along the way, please send them Facebook, Instagram, anything. Send us a DM, and we can answer them at the end of the show. Really, what we're doing is trying to provide some resources for you guys to be able to do cool stuff at home. So please ask questions.
Absolutely. We've got a little Q&A session too that we'll jump into. This condiment here that I've made for this really, really awesome stuff for a meat like this. It's a shiso chimi. If you don't have access to shiso, which is it's got a lot of little subtle notes to it. It's not as I guess, flavor prominent as cilantro. Go ahead and use cilantro. You can substitute it based on the recipe that I wrote in the same amount. We'll put a little bit of this right over the top. Got some finishing flake salt that we'll put over this meat too. This is such a thick steak that we want to make sure that we get some of that seasoning down inside. I also like to add some stuff for texture. So we're going to do a nice little pile of some fried garlic, and then we'll do a little pile of some fried shallot as well. And then as we kind of hang out here next to the grills and build our bites, we've got a lot of fun stuff to play with to give it a lot more flavor. And I've got a side of ponzu as well, because this stuff goes really well with the meat as well as this fish. So we have our steak, prepared yakimono style, with a lot of condiments, like our ponzu and our yuzu koshu. We've got our elk backstrap tataki that we did over hickory, and we have our robata skewers and shareables. So again, some restaurant preparations, some things that you might not have thought of at home to do with your wild game or to do on your Burch barrel. I found in my last couple weeks of playing with this thing that I can do just as great food that I can do at home. And one of the things that I think is really cool about the grill is the fact that it's extremely portable. And unlike what you've seen at home, probably cooking in your elk camps or on camping trips with the family, a lot of times your camp grill's not what you're looking for to cook at home. It just doesn't get as hot. It doesn't cook quite as well. This thing's really got the capability to do just as well at home as it does at the campsite, which I think is a really awesome feature. But anyway, this is what I've got for you guys for a menu for our backyard robata. Thanks for joining us. And we're going to jump into a little Q&A here with Andrew.
Cool. Again, thank you guys very much for showing up and tuning in. Hope you had as much fun as we did preparing this. We'll run through a few questions, try and answer them to the best of our ability, and then get to eating the stuff because we don't want it to cool off too much. First question was, is there any wood or just coals under the ribeye? So what we did was primarily...
We primarily just use lump charcoal. Now, a lot of times when we're doing things like the backstrap and we want to get some of that quick flavor, we'll throw some soaked chips on. We've got some hickory behind me. We just chose not to do this because it'll kind of smoke out the shot here and ruin it'll kind of blow the shot that you're seeing when we're filming.
But we did soak quite a bit.
We start with wood and it kind of gets that going. And right before you sear, you can take that a handful of the soaked chips like we have here, and just like literally toss them in right through the grate. You can even use the lock collar if they're too large to go through. Lift the grate, raise it up, throw a small amount of chips in. This is about enough to get some really nice smoke flavor on here.
Let's toss them on. So this is how you'd smoke traditionally. And if we wanted to,
Once that starts to go, and once you drop the lid down using the pistol grip, this gives a really nice smoke flavor to a piece of meat like this backstrap.
Yep. What we'll do there is drop the lid, and this thing will start to smoke. So we've got about a minute and a half before we're going to get smoked out. We'll bump to the next question. Next question is, what's the temp range, or what was the temp on the ribeye? What do you cook it to? What do you try to get your grill to?
So for me, I like to cook these as hot as possible. And again, this is where this grill is unique in that because of the temperature, if I'm worried that I'm going to burn or I'm going to overcook, I can simply raise the meat up. I like mine a nice mid-rare to medium. So the way we did this came out at a really perfect mid-rare, as you can kind of see in here. But again, that's kind of one of those things that everybody's a little different. And if you want yours to be well done, mid-well, however you're comfortable temping, maybe it's just putting a little pressure on to feel the meat, or maybe it's using a digital thermometer to make sure you're really accurate. Just do that, because however you're the most comfortable, that's going to translate into a better product.
Cool. Next question, if you have to improvise some of the ingredients, can you still get the taste and flavor that you made?
Absolutely. I kind of set some things up here in the front so you can see a lot of this is stuff that I can just get here in the grocery. I did buy a few things on Amazon, like that Yuzu koshu and the fried garlic and fried shallot. But pretty much this is all stuff that I just got at a regular grocery store, like here in Jackson at Albertsons, for instance. But yeah, absolutely. If you think that you need to substitute based on product availability, just change it out. Taste your food as you cook. It's an interactive process. It should be fun. Taste things, adjust based on what you've got, and it'll turn out perfect.
Sweet. Another question was, do I need a meat thermometer? I think Topher just addressed that. You can go by touch. You can go by meat thermometer. You can do a pinprick option. Next one is, how hot did you get the coals for each one? I'm going to let you answer that while I take care of the back end. But
so very hot. Again, like I mentioned, I like to cook on just absolutely ripping hot coals. I like to make sure that the coal pan is very, very full. I think we can kind of get a shot in here of what we're working with. I've got a pretty even layer. You can see that they're nice and white. There's no flame coming off of these. And by doing it this way, I've got just, it's screaming hot. I really can't hold my hand here for more than about 3 seconds before it's really uncomfortable. The temperature gauge on this one was reading about 800 degrees.
Can you show us what the temp gauge is, Topher?
Absolutely. Let me drop this lid real fast. So you can see here the temperature gauge is right on top. Right before I started cooking, this thing was about 800 and holding really strong. The other day when we did some tests on these recipes, this thing with one pan of coals held at 700 for about 2.5, 3 hours. So the amount of time that this grill can hold temperature is absolutely incredible. Any other questions, Andrew?
Yeah, we actually had 2 more come in at the very end. I'll run over here with you one more time. Again, our smoker, just show that off real quick. That's kicking off some really
small handful.
Handful. And if we wanted to, we can shut off, go to a smoldering combustion on this, and it'll just dump smoke into your meat. One of the cool things, you can do it in 5 minutes instead of half an hour. So, one of the questions, how much does this weigh? We're about 60 pounds for the total setup. If you buy one, they ship in 2 parts. You'll receive the barrel, and you'll receive the tripod and tripod legs. It's pretty sweet when it comes in. It'll change your view on grilling for sure. Is there any difference between game or something like hard meat? This is something we talked about in depth through the whole process. You guys didn't exactly get to see, but ribeyes, harder meat. They got great marbleization inside the meat.
Yeah, you're going to see a lot of difference too in how it cooks, and that's again where that ability to raise and lower really comes in handy. The Carter Country meats, this stuff is a double-aged grass-fed coal, so it's got a really incredible fat content, even for being grass-fed. I know we're kind of used to grass-fed beef always being extremely lean. This has got really awesome marbling. I'd say it has even rivaled some of the kind of the big brands of American Wagyu that I've purchased in restaurants, which makes it such an incredible product. So you'll get a lot of flare-ups, whereas that game meat, like our elk backstrap or bison, for instance,
This is my favorite part.
all very, very lean. So you're not going to see the flare-ups. You don't have to be quite as cautious with the flame. If there is a little flame, you don't have to worry about it burning as much.
You can actually get the flame hitting the meat because there's such a low content of fat in this. You can have the flame lick the meat and it won't actually create a carcinogen buildup. which is really sweet.
Yeah, we played around with some of this stuff over the last couple of weeks, kind of cooking together and having some cookouts. And we've just seen awesome results, whether we're using, beef from the grocery store, beef that we got from Carter Country, or even elk out of our freezer that we've harvested here on public lands. All of it just cooks up so incredibly. And I will say overall, the way that we're doing it is probably my favorite way, using this lump charcoal. The briquettes, those work really well. And then if you do want the smoke flavor, just like we showed you, a small handful of the wood chips is really all you need to get the flavor.
Okay, so we'll end on this question. I'm sorry, we got to cut this off at some point in time. How do you shut this down once you're done grilling? There's a couple different ways. I'll grab a glove real quick to show you. First thing we want to do, and we're going to raise our lid. You can see we're really kind of in the middle of cooking here, but you can remove this coal pan completely and go dump that if you need to. We can drop this down, and if you wanted to, we can go to full smother by shutting off this guy here, which is going to shut off all the oxygen to the tank, and then we're going to drop the lid, close the top vent, and this is actually going to smother it with oxygen. One of the best things about this I love is that literally, I think it's kid friendly. I can sit here, but it's a little warm on my hand, but I can hold my hand on the exterior of the barrel because it is double layered. The top of the lid is a different story. The very bottom is a different story as well. But very fun grilling experience. And I hope you guys enjoy this. Thank you again for tuning in, and check in next time for our next Barbecue Live event.
Yeah, thanks for joining us for the Backyard Rabata. See you next time.
Thanks, guys. Hey. Nice work. You guys ready to eat?
Let's eat.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
85 viewers, 85 different viewers. Okay. Pretty good. That's a big jump.
Oh,
from
it
last
smells
time.
good.
Yeah, and people, it wasn't like we had like 15 most of the time.